Now, since starting this channel, I think there's just been a natural tendency for myself to cover more, I would say, smaller case sizes as a byproduct of my own personal taste, as well as my own wrist size and limitations of that. But I think it's probably a poor job out of me to neglect larger, or say medium to larger size watches out there for different types of wearers. I've certainly opened up my just perspective on kind of pushing the envelope a little bit more in regards to wearing watches maybe slightly outside of your comfort zone, because I think life is just too short to limit yourself to a case size for a watch. So in this video, what I want to do is look at some dive watches under $1,000 for, I would say, medium to larger size wrists. So in this video, I'm not going to say there's going to be necessarily a general case size range or lug to lug dimensions, but I would probably say most of these watches are going to be 42 millimeters and above and have a wearable lug to lug distance despite that case size, except for some that might have a bit of an extension. Also, I don't want to go for watches that are just big for big's sake. I want there to be reasons behind some of these watches if they are going to extend out quite a bit more, but it'll be a good mix of watches that I think are very wearable, even for someone like myself, but do just have a bit more presence. And I think this would be a good video to watch regardless of your wrist size, because I think there'll be something here for you. Before I jump into this video, I do want to mention again that we do have a giveaway coming up. I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to join it, get a free watch up to $1,500 from Baldassarre.com. So if you want to enter, fill out the form down below, follow all the instructions. You pick out 3 watches from the website, Baldassarre.com. And then when you're announced as the winner, last time I think there was 20,000 people that entered, so I'm expecting close to the same this time. But if you are selected, you will be able to pick out one of your 3 watches for free. So fill out the form down below. We'll be announcing the winner here, so be sure to be subscribed, as well as follow me on Instagram. We'll be announcing the winner in both of those places, but the winner will be contacted as well. But it's good to make sure you're staying informed, because only 48 hours to claim your prize, so you want to know. Now, one of my personal favorite watches that Orient makes is the Orient Canoe. Now, the case size is a little bit on the larger end, but I think this one wears in a nice middle ground that could be worn on a variety of different wrists, and I even myself will be wearing it from time to time. Now, you have different colorways, and when it comes to the indices as well as the handset, one of my favorite watches from Orient. The only problem with this watch, I think sometimes it's kind of gets lost in the shadow of the Casio, as they were introduced around the same time, so I think there was a lot of just people that naturally went to the Casio rather than the Canoe, and I think that's unfortunate, because this is a great looking watch, nice bezel action. I think in a lot of ways almost looks better than the Casio, but does have larger dimensions on the wrist. Does have a mineral crystal, but you are getting a reliable in-house caliber from Orient, which I always find outperform general specification of a lot of movements in this entry-level perspective. And all this considered, getting a nice attractive price tag around $250, $300, depending on the variant and strap option that you go for. So when looking at dive watches under $1,000, I think one of the best brands is going to be Citizen, and almost just trading blows with Seiko. Depending on what you value, I think these are probably some of the best brands, if not the 2 best brands that you're gonna find for delivering great spec'd out dive watches for the money. And the one that we're gonna be looking at here first is the Ecozilla. Kind of following a case design style that is more of like a hockey puck style in terms of it on the wrist, kind of follow the format of, say, the Seiko Tuna in some ways. But in terms of its specification and wear, it's going to have presence, but also something that I think is a bit endearing if you do like the traditional dive watch aesthetic. We're looking at a 48 millimeter diameter, but considering just how the strap is going to meet the case, it is not going to wear so much north to south as maybe one might expect. 300 meters of water resistance, and you're also getting a nice eco-drive movement within, which is going to of course come with that great kind of set it and forget it type of technology, using solar energy to power that quartz oscillation within. Now, next up here, we're gonna be looking at a micro brand that I think does a good job at this entry-level dive watch point. And most of the watches I think are typically affiliated with this brand are the ones that are a bit smaller. So the Mako, as well as looking at like the Swordfish, for example, those are the watches I commonly just see mentioned a bit more, but 2 other variations with the Hammerhead 2 and the Abyss 3. So the Hammerhead 2, I would say definitely is a wearable case, despite being on this list. With 47 millimeter with that lug to lug distance, but 44 millimeter case, we're following a format that is closer to that of a, say, Seiko Turtle or something of that sort. Getting a reliable NH35 inside here that is going to be regulated and typically is performing quite well. And a $450 price point. You have some bronze case options to go for as well, which I think is really nice when looking at this dive watch. And I think a lot of this bronze watch phenomenon is kind of just is happening right now. It is a bit of a trend, and I don't know how long it's gonna last. So if you do wanna get in on the trend, I think it's better to do it at an affordable price sometimes, or a great way to kind of sample it out. Also getting 1,000 meters of water resistance and a sapphire crystal, so a lot there. But if say you want something with some heaping presence, that's gonna be with the Zelos Abyss. So 3,000 meters in water resistance, but the presence here is going to be with that case thickness. And personally, this is not gonna be for myself in terms of wanting a watch I think a little bit slimmer, but there are people that maybe just want a thick dive watch and just want some presence. And I think the Abyss 3, in terms of its specification, its design, its style, goes for something that will answer the call for people. And personally speaking, I think getting into the thickness is probably one of the big things that turns me off to a watch or a dive watch, but there are plenty of people out there that just like a thick, clunky dive watch. And if you are somebody of that variety, this is going to be a watch that's gonna be right up your alley. So next up, we have a watch that was worn on Arnold Schwarzenegger's wrist, and if a watch can fit on his wrist, Mr. Olympia's wrist, chances are it's a nice dive watch for larger wrists, and that is with the SNJ025, the Seiko Arnie. So for around $525, case size at 47.8 millimeters, this Seiko Solar Quartz is going to be a watch that I think has a lot of vintage intrigue, given just the 80s vibes, of course, that this one, in terms of its affiliations, is going to pull off. But you're also getting a nice spec'd out diver, wearability that is going to, of course, be in line with somebody of Arnold Schwarzenegger's stature or somebody that likes that style. You're also getting an ISO 6425 rated dive watch here. So in terms of spec, certainly there, and you're also getting a cult classic in the process with its overall dimensions, as well as its digital analog display. So next up, we have a watch that is again from Seiko, and this will be the last Seiko on the list here, with the Seiko King Turtle. So the SRPE03 with the particular variant we're looking at. I actually reviewed this watch alongside a LX model from Seiko, so it was a cool kind of side-by-side between a $600 watch and a $6,000 watch from the brand. And I think this watch held up really well, and this would be one that I would even consider for myself in wearing because of the traditional kind of turtle case style, with that lug-to-lug distance being very compact despite the larger case size. Don't get it twisted, this does have some presence across the wrist, just given the case architecture, but overall there's a lot to like here. You're getting a sapphire crystal with that day-date display, that waffle textured dial, which I personally like. There's a few different dial colors to choose from as well. You're also getting a ceramic bezel on this one, which really comes together, I think, for a really solid package and reliable movement inside. Of course, not the most attractive thing. It is going to be hidden from view with that closed case back, but a lot to like with the King Turtle series, and I think is a nice changing of the pace in regards to other Seiko divers out there, which is pretty hard to do because we all know there are a lot of them out there. Now, speaking to a dive watch from Citizen that I think is going to have, of course, great presence, but is presence for a reason, given just the dive watch spec that we have here, and that is with the Citizen Aqualand. So to me, this is one of the dive watches that I consider quite a bit when thinking of Citizen overall. You're getting a lot of the regular things that one would consider. So around $700, getting a case size that is, I think, a little sizable, but of course in line with the video that we have here today. Capable water resistance of 200 meters, and you're getting an Eco Drive, a Citizen movement within, which is gonna create a lot of good peace of mind. But this is a watch that is a dive watch for dive watch enthusiasts. You have a legible analog digital display and an accurate integrated depth gauge, and with its depth gauge, is gonna act as an excellent backup for divers that are using a diving computer. And if you've not seen my video actually looking at 5 things to know about your dive watch, I highly recommend it. It's probably one of my favorite videos that we've done on the channel, so I'll link to it down below. This one makes a guest appearance, and also when talking about this depth gauge and talking about traditional diver spec, we get into a lot of the details there, so I'll link to it down below. So now a dive watch that I think is a little bit more into, I would say, mainstream in terms of its appearance compared to the Aqualand that we just showed, and that is with the Tissot Seastar. So in terms of a entry-level Swiss diver, this is definitely in the mix, and there's a variety of different dial colors to choose from. You also have a quartz option as well as an automatic option. You have the ones with the SI hairspring as well, so quite a bit of different variations here. 43 millimeter case, but pretty wearable lug-to-lug distance, just over 49 millimeters. I always find that the Seastar does really change in its appearance depending on which one that you go for. Some are a bit more youthful, like the blue dial version. I see that looking great on somebody between the ages of like 18 to 30. And then for something a little bit more polished and maybe professional, going for it, say the darker kind of gradient blues and the black dials. A lot to choose from here in terms of the Seastar collection, but 300 meters of water resistance, ceramic bezel, and a reliable movement within. I think there's a lot to like with the Seastar, and that's not even considering the really attractive looking just format in terms of its design. So this video probably wouldn't be complete without looking at a Casio GShock, and probably what I typically am going to mention is the 5600 case variants, but instead we're going to be looking at a Frogman, and a big one at that, with their particular reference with the GWF A1000. So the dimensions on this thing are quite huge, there's no doubt about it, but one thing that's great about the GShock is I think when it's on the wrist, it just feels a bit more at home with even those dimensions, just because of the context and understanding of what a GShock should serve for a wearer. You're getting 200 meters of water resistance, reliable movement within, of course, just the technology that of course has become synonymous with the GShock, and also getting a sapphire crystal on the front. So this is certainly an upscale GShock when looking at the wide variety that you have at your disposal. This one does also offer a ton of legitimate diving functionality that flirts with a dive computer territory in terms of its capabilities, while maintaining the classic GShock aesthetic that has earned this model just legions of fans over the years. Crap, I just realized that I mentioned that there's only going to be one more Seiko mention, but I lied. There's going to be another Seiko mention, and that is with a Seiko Sumo. And I think I mentioned the idea of a lot of the turtles wearing, I would say, smaller than their case sizes, and not, of course, really reflecting that case diameter as much. The Sumo family, I think, does mirror the diameter with its actual wear in the day-to-day a bit better, and that could be a positive or negative depending on what you're going for, but in a video like this, probably a good thing. And with the Sumo we're going to be looking at, it's the SPB 179. So this variation is going to be one of the new Built for Ice collection, which offered a few different dial colors, and it comes in that traditional Sumo case style, which I think always does offer a bit of refinement in terms of its finish, as well as a bit of differentiation from the other typical divers that one associates with, say, the Samurai, as well as the Turtle. Apart from the aesthetics alone, there also was an upgrade in regards to the movement here. So this one does feature a 6R35, so 70-hour power reserve here, which is really nice to see. And you're also seeing this movement in some dive watches from Seiko that are getting closer to the $1,500 range. So seeing it in a watch that is sub $1,000 is nice. Also getting an ISO rated diver. That textured waffle dial surface, of course, pops as well. And on my wrist, I still felt comfortable wearing this thing. If you put it on, say, like a nylon strap, for example, on the bracelet, definitely going to be a bigger wear. But overall, love the look of these things, good bezel action, and of course, a very suitable option for today's video. So one of my favorite dive watches, say around $1,000, is the Mido Ocean Star Tribute. And as you might expect from a dive watch that has Tribute in its name, it's going to, of course, appeal more towards vintage proportions in both its case size and also its styling. But instead, looking at the Mido Ocean Star 200, getting more of a contemporary take on the Ocean Star family, and a case size that I think will be, of course, more appropriate for this video. So looking at 42 millimeters with its case size, it's going to wear, I would say, closer to a 41 millimeter. I wouldn't say it is a huge watch by any means, but definitely leans towards a medium to larger size wrist. But in terms of the specification here, you're getting a lot of the upside of being a Swatch Group brand. 80-hour power reserve with the movement, nice case of materials, also really well finished just watch in general here when looking at it. And with that 49 millimeter lug to lug, again, this one I think is going to wear pretty solid on the wrist, and I would have no reluctance in wearing it. 200 meters of water resistance, nice bezel action, just a lot to like here. So whenever I do a video of under $1,000, a brand that always gets mentioned in the comments is Christopher Ward. People love this brand, and seeing how much this brand has ascended in the last, say, 5 to 10 years is pretty impressive, I must admit. So we think it just makes sense to feature one of their watches here with one of their Tridents. So one of the best things about the just Tridents in general is going to be the variety of case options to choose from. So the variant that we're gonna be looking at here is 42 millimeters, wearable lug to lug though at just 49.3 millimeters. But in terms of the specifications, 600 meters of water resistance, a regulated SW200 movement within, a sapphire crystal, nice bezel as well, and a variety of different colors to choose from. But one of the issues with Christopher Ward is going to be the fact that they're based in the UK. So if you're just dealing with shipping as well as with the exchange rate, the prices are going to vary quite a bit in terms of what you're going to be seeing, especially here in the United States. But regardless, usually the value is always there with this brand. Now to round out our list, we have a very interesting brand in Certina. So Certina is a brand that I think for many just average enthusiasts they don't really consider it that much, but in terms of dive watch enthusiast circles, this brand has a lot of prestige in the area. So Certina supplied watches for the Tektite 1 project in 1969, where a team of scientists and divers spent 2 months in an underwater laboratory. Today, like other watch brands, Certina is digging through their archives and providing updated takes on their classic designs, including this excellent orange dialed example that we have here. Now, this particular version we're looking at is their DS Super PH 500 meters. Now, in terms of the diameter and thickness of this one, that's where the case presence is going to be felt at 43 millimeters and thickness just under 15, so a little sizable there, but the lug to lug should make this appropriate for many wrists out there. But water resistance, sapphire crystal, great bezel, and I think very classic looks. I think that is the intrigue with this brand. All right, guys, well, that is my list of watches for medium to larger size wrists. I'd love to see your comments down below if you want to see more of this. I was a little bit hesitant to put it out there because I know a ton of demand around small watches, but I think it's unfortunate that I think some people are left out when looking for watches for larger wrists, but wanted to do it, put out a video for you people out there that are looking for watches of this style. What watch in general is your favorite for a medium to larger size wrist? I'd love to see that as well in the comments, and definitely take advantage of that giveaway. Fill out the form down below if you want to partake, and also make sure to follow all the instructions in the form so you are entered to win. And then, make sure you're subscribed here, as well as going over to Instagram and following there so you can see the announcement when we make it. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I'll see you all very soon.